Hi, and welcome to episode 76 of Only Human. You've probably already noticed we've made a few changes, and we've actually made quite significant changes. And I'm really interested in getting your feedback. We've got a new name, still Only Human, but now it's News, Analysis, and Insights from the World of Human Performance. Now, our goal remains the same: to help you bridge the gap between who you are today and who you're capable of becoming, but with just some different perspectives. A little less philosophical, you know how I like to get, and more real world stuff, because that's where we live, right? So we're going to start out by reviewing a few articles, items of news that have come out over the past few weeks, and talk a little bit about the human performance implications of them. And so we're going to start with one that I've actually consolidated this from several articles, and I'm calling it Troubles in the Nation's Capital. Right? And it's not politics for once. You may know about this one, but a physical altercation took place in the air traffic control tower of Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. on 27th of March this year, involving two on-duty traffic controllers. The incident occurred late at night, just before 11 p.m., when a heated argument about something escalated into violence, and one controller allegedly threw a punch that connected at the other. And by the time colleagues intervened, again, reportedly, blood had splattered all over the control console. I mean, seriously? That's crazy. There's a lot to this story, so I want to make sure you get the whole picture. The tower is typically staffed with a supervisor and 6 to 7 controllers at that hour. And there's a lot of busy airspace, even that late at night. So what happened afterwards, the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority police came in and arrested a young man named Damon Marcellus Gaines, a 39-year-old air traffic controller from Maryland. And he was charged with misdemeanor assault. The FAA placed him on administrative leave pending an investigation, and that investigation, to the best of my knowledge, is still ongoing. So we don't know what sparked the fight, but we know that it's probably not conducive to good teamwork in a high-density traffic area, right? And this incident followed some tumultuous times for DCA Tower. You'll remember on January 29th, of course, the tragic mid-air collision between an American Airlines jet operated by a regional carrier and an Army Black Hawk helicopter, killing 67 people. The deadliest aviation accident in over 15 years in America. And that crash, which has been attributed partially to understaffing, one controller was handling both helicopter and plane traffic, and that's a job usually split between two people. And that left everybody shaken there at Ronald Reagan Airport, and frankly, at air traffic control facilities around the country. And you can just imagine how tensions have simmered. Compounded, there was a near miss on March 28th involving a Delta jet and an Air Force plane. You could probably see the cauldron beginning to boil up, and maybe that stress boiled over into this incident with the assault and battery inside the control tower with two controllers on duty. So the FAA responded, I guess on April 2nd, that a critical incident stress management team would visit DCA in early April to support controllers. I guess the question would be, was that too little and too late? It's great that they're going. I think it's needed. But why the delay? Maybe they were too busy to take people off staff, to take care of their people. I don't know. But I want to talk just for a couple of minutes about this incident. And I'm wondering what mental health resources are currently being provided to air traffic control personnel, and maybe what should be provided to them. And I'm well aware that every government agency has a, click here to talk to a counselor and take care of your buddy program going on. But what's happening in air traffic control and really that ripples out into the rest of aviation. It's happening everywhere from maintenance hangars to cockpits, is understaffing, lots of changes, the greatest turnover in history of personnel, all inside an industry that has very, very tight tolerances. So it's scary, right? And when you begin to look at the issue of stress, we can talk about that in a couple of different ways. Chronic stress and acute stress, right? Chronic stress builds up over time. It's a documented killer, right? It leads to hypertension, strokes, heart attacks, a host of other diseases associated with chronic stress. But here's the other thing it does. Chronic stress primes you for acute stress, right? When you've only got so much room on the curve between when you're completely stressed out and you can no longer perform, and something sets you off, man, that's when those things happen. And I'm if I had to guess, I would guess that there's some combination of these things that occurred at the air traffic control tower. Everybody was stressed. Something was said. Someone didn't react well. It escalated from there, and we see the result. And I think there's some lessons to learn from that. And that is, first of all, we got to manage our chronic stress in whatever way possible. Exercise, sleep, communication skills, all of those things are vitally important. So let's move on to another stress-related and kind of aviation-related story, and with a much happier ending and some actual lessons from the people that were involved in it. NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, those were the guys that were up there delayed, thought they were going on a 3-hour tour and ended up on Gilligan's Island, right? They were delayed in their return from the International Space Station for over 9 months, right? Due to issues with the original Boeing Starliner spacecraft. And lately, over the last couple of days, they've been speaking out about their experience, and it's pretty cool stuff. So just a little background. Their mission was originally planned for 8 days. It's supposed to start on June 5th, and it ended up stretching to 286 days with their return on March 18th aboard a SpaceX Dragon capsule. So here's what they've shared about how they handled that with their extended delay, right? And you might expect these guys, as astronauts, are high-end performers, human performers. And I think there's some lessons here that we can really, really benefit from. Suni Williams, on a Fox News interview last week, emphasized adaptability and a positive mindset. Now, those are kind of bland terms. I know I'll drill into them a little bit deeper as the key to handling the unexpected extension. Her first thought when she found out that they were not going home after 8 days, and they really didn't know when they were going home, was, I've got to mentally pivot. We just got to pivot. Right? If this was their new destiny, right? If it was not going to be going home right away, she had to pivot into something different. So what did she do? Initially, she said, okay, let's make the best of it. And she mentioned that their training had prepared them for such contingencies, and NASA trains for all kinds of contingencies, right? We planned, this is a quote, we trained that we would be there for some part of a longer period of time. So we were ready to jump in and take on some of the experiments and tasks that were given to us. Right? Earlier, in another press conference, she said that she began to think of the space station as, quote, my happy place, unquote. And I think this is fantastic because, when you think of an astronaut, they spend most of their life on the ground preparing to go and be at that one place. And so here she is, she's there. She thinks it's going to be short. Now it gets to be longer. And she says, guess what? I get to spend longer in a place I'm really, really happy that I got to be here at all. And she developed a comfort for the environment. And despite the delay, although she did admit to missing her dogs and her family, not in that order, her family and her dogs. And she talked about how she viewed turning a challenge into an opportunity, how well she worked at integrating into the ISS crew, who didn't think they were going to be there long either. There was a lot of stress on them. And even going as far as breaking a record for the most hours that a woman astronaut has spent spacewalking. So, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that in mental flexibility and adaptability. Let's talk about Butch Wilmore. He focused a little differently. He focused on his preparation and commitment to the mission. He said, you come to terms by realizing this is part of the job, right? Human spaceflight is all about planning for unexpected contingencies. He said, we came up prepared to stay long, even though we planned to stay short, right? He said, we never felt abandoned. We don't feel stuck. We don't feel stranded. So let's change it to prepared and committed. Those were words of his coming directly from the space station before he came back. He basically said, you know what? I've trained for this. I've prepared for it. Come what may, bring it on. We got it, right? He also found comfort in routine tasks, just doing scientist stuff, right? Conducting experiments, assisting with spacewalks, and he even voted in the 2024 U.S. election from space, right? I mean, I know they would talk about in-person voting, but that's a pretty cool exception. So what can we learn from these two guys? Obviously, they leaned on extensive experience and extensive preparation. Right? Williams had long-duration ISS stays before, and Wilmore had 178 days in space before this mission. Right? So it wasn't like this was new to them. Right? They integrated into the crew for, I guess it was Expedition 72, and they contributed to more than 200 scientific investigations. They celebrated with the group on Thanksgiving and Christmas in orbit, right? Those could be really downtimes with your family, but they weren't. They both acknowledged that it took an emotional toll, not only on them, but more so for their families, which as a reflection took a toll on them. But together, I think we could say their coping strategy hinged on resilience, right? And a sense of duty, and probably most important in my mind, a reframing of the delay as a new opportunity within their mission rather than a setback. And I just think as we look at stress in our own lives, we took in my company a pretty hearty blow here recently with a contract that we thought was going to be extended that was not, completely out of the blue and unexpected. And yet we fell back to, hey, we have a checklist for this. This is what we're trained for. Just another obstacle to overcome in the small business environment that we're in. Right? So, I mean, reframing and preparing seems to be able to really help us. Now, let's reflect back to the thing that happened in the Reagan Tower. Imagine if those guys came in and in the pre-brief said, we're all stressed. Let's not let anything get the best of us here tonight. Let's stay on task and make sure we're keeping everything separated and really kind of take it easy on each other. You know, just a simple acknowledgement that stress levels were high from previous events might have prevented that whole thing. That's the reframing we're talking about. I have one more story here before we wrap up in this new format. And it ties in nicely with the last one. I just saw an an online announcement for something called the Spaceflight Human Optimization Summit, right? It's coming up April 22nd, 2025. It's in Houston, Texas. And I'm going to make every possible effort I can to either online attend, or find out what the heck's going on there, because anything that says human optimization, you know, that really piques my interest. So the event's scheduled for late April, and it's a lead up to long duration space flights. You say Mars, right? People have been talking about it in the lead up to it, and what they're really looking at are what are the capabilities of experts, right? That can withstand long duration stress and boredom and anxiety. And so they're going to look at experts in physical strength, conditioning, psychology, nutrition, all these things to optimize the astronaut's physical readiness for extended space operations. So it's really an attempt to maybe relook at what kind of people we want to go to Mars, right? And going to Mars, what is it, like 6 months or whatever, absent a work drive between now and then staying on Mars for a while, and then coming back, we're talking about a year to maybe a year and a half mission away from home with the same small group of people. Excuse me for a second. And I'm old enough to remember, and all of you can Google this up or grok it up or whatever you do to learn about this, but there was a big shift in what they were looking for in astronauts between the Mercury and the Gemini days, and then, of course, into Apollo. But if you remember the movie The Right Stuff, it was how they selected those first, was it the Mercury 7 astronauts? They were looking for that solo warrior that could withstand the stress, the physiology, make decisions on their own. They were looking for a fighter pilot kind of guy, right? That's why Neil Armstrong and test pilots dominated that group, that could operate and make decisions under extreme stress all by themselves. And they did a great job of it. Obviously, the Mercury program was hugely successful. And then they went to Gemini, where now we're putting two of those guys next to each other. I don't know if you've ever been around fighter pilots in a bar. You put two of them together, and not always so good, right? So they had to look, and then, of course, into Apollo, where there's three, they had to begin to look at how good were these guys at getting along with other people? How did they handle stress? How did they communicate? Could they take a leadership role when necessary, fall back into a followership role when necessary? And now we're looking at a year and a half in space with a crew of, I don't know how many, I'm guessing 6, 7, 8, maybe more, going to Mars. How is that going to work? What are the traits, the attributes? What do you select for? What do you have to train? What are the obstacles in the way of something that man has never done before, mankind has never done before? So it's going to be fascinating to see what comes out of there. I'm especially interested in the psychological side. And as we kind of work our way through this new format, I'm going to continually ask you guys what you think on all of these things. So I'll start with this one. What do you think the attributes of a 18-month small team in extreme high stress, unforgiving circumstances ought to be? And you include them all, physical, psychological, all of those other things. Because I'm fascinated to see if our group of experts kind of come up with the same idea as, a group of scientists that are meeting in Houston here in a couple of weeks. Well, that's the new format for Only Human: news, analysis, and insights on human performance. I have a lot of other topics coming up. We'll probably have guests more frequently than we have in the past, but we're going to stay on top of real world situations and reflect back on what it means for us. But this is still about the same thing. How do we grow where we are with the resources at hand to live better lives and leave a better world when we leave it behind? So until next time, keep thinking about this stuff. Let me know what you think of the new format, and I will see you soon.